The first step in making a pair of shoes is to find out where the middle of the length of steel is. And I do that by taking a piece of soapstone and marking where I think the middle is. And then I take one piece and I turn it around. So now I have two marks that may not be side by side. And all I need to do is find the midpoint of that small gap. In this case, it's very small. So then I go ahead and I mark my steel on the outside edge where that midpoint is. Ideally, the mark will be slightly offset to one end of the bar. I want the distance from the end to the mid mark to be slightly greater on what will be the lateral part of the shoe and slightly shorter on the medial part of the shoe.
So making the hind toe bend, you have one part of the bend is one side of the center mark, the other half of the bend is on the other side of the center mark. But they're closer together than they would be if it was a fore or a front shoe. And then I go to the horn and I want to make sure my branches are straight once they come off the toe bend. So that's what I'm doing when I'm on either side of the horn. And that gives me a very precise bend in the toe and then very straight branches. Sets me up nicely to then make the rest of the shoe. So now I'm going to take my dividers and scribe the toe. Once I'm happy with the shape of the toe, I'm going to scribe the toe to locate my toenails. And I've still got enough heat in the steel that I can get a good deep mark with my stamp. Not completely stamped, but they're 2/3 of the way stamped, so that even though the steel is going to get heated again, I'll still be able to see those marks.
So this is a good view of making a hind toe bend. For me, a toe bend, either fore or hind, is made from two bends. One each either side of that center mark that I put in the steel at the beginning, as you can see here. Another move that will help to make consistent shoe shapes is to ensure the part of the steel not involved in the toe is straight when the toe shaping is finished. You can see me use the horn to strike each branch to make them straight before finishing. Usually a hind hoof has a tighter toe bend than the fore shoe, so that means the piece of steel should end up with a bend that will give an angle of slightly less than 90 degrees when you're finished making the toe. Here I'm using a pair of dividers to scribe the toe for the first nail holes. I'll use the 4-puncher stamp to make a good deep mark for each nail hole, so those nail holes are about halfway made. I've still got some heat in the steel, and because this is a hind shoe, I want to pull back the leading edge of the shoe. We call that safing. It makes the shoe less likely to cut the bulbs of the heels of the fore hoof. With concave, always do it this way with the hoof surface towards the camera. That makes it less likely to pinch the section of steel. As I make the shoes, I keep track of which part of which shoe I'm working on. And to do that, I need to have a routine I use every time. Here I'm indicating which part is the medial branch and which is the lateral branch.
So now I'm working on the front shoe, and just the same as the hind, I'm striking either side of the center mark just further away from the center mark so I get a broader toe, more the shape of the front hoof. Again, one branch is slightly longer than the other, so I need to know which is my lateral, and the center mark should be at the top of the arc. So when I place the steel in the anvil, I can see that I've got symmetry as much as possible. And then I take my dividers and mark my toenails and go ahead and use the 4-punch to mark those toenails.
You can see this toe shape for the fore is broader and more open than the hind toe shape. Bending the branch is more about the left hand than the right. Watch the tongs rotate around the horn on the anvil. The hammer does come to this side slightly, but it's the tongs that create the bend by dropping. Mark the nail holes, then go back and finish stamping with fast, heavy blows. That keeps your fork punch from getting too hot. If you've punched deep enough, it'll only require 1 or 2 blows on the pritchel to pop out the remaining steel to form a clean rectangular nail hole. Take the shoe to the horn and hammer the outer hoof edge. That gives this edge of the shoe a good bevel to then fit to the outer edge of the hoof wall. So now I'm working on the hind shoe on the lateral branch. I begin by forging the lateral heel. It's more or less one angle that would be parallel to the side of the frog when the shoe is finished. And this is a side view of the same operation, just with the second camera. So you can see I knocked off the outside corner first, just slightly, and then the majority of the forging is on the inside corner to push it across. So I end up with one angle coming towards the outside edge of the shoe. And then flatten the heel, but don't pinch it down. And then this is just a closer view of the same thing again. See again, the majority of the forging is taking the inside corner and moving it towards the outside, and then just flattening the shoe without thinning the heel or narrowing the heel unnecessarily. Now I'm forming the lateral branch of the hind. It's slightly different to the front shoe in that the bend in the quarters is more distinct. There's a straightish part between the toe and the quarters, and then the last part of the branch after the quarters is a little bit more straight too. So now I'm stamping my nail holes. See, 2 hard hits, and then if I need to I'll go back in and 1 more, and that should leave me with 1 or 2 blows maximum with my pritchel. And of course I've got angle on both of those tools to give an appropriate angle for those nail holes.
So here's another view of the same operation, bending that lateral branch. Watch the tongue hand drop. The hammer strikes the anvil, or strikes the steel on the horn in pretty much the same spot. There's just a bend in the latter part of the quarter. So watch the angle of the stamp and then the angle of the pritchel. So most angle at the toe, and then intermediate angle on the second and third nail if you have 4 nails, or on the middle nail, and then the heel nail is either the slightest angle or even upright. The medial heel will be upright. Now on the horn I'm hammering off that sharp outer edge, so I've got a beveled or a sloped outer edge to the shoe all the way around right to the very end of the heel.